Tonight, Fox News contributor Sarah Carter, former Utah Congressman, Fox News contributor and author of Power Grab, Jason Chaffetz, and president of Independent Women's Voice and Fox News contributor Tammy Bruce. Now, just to sort of set the conversation up, and as a public service to anyone...
None of us have any opinion, of course.
No opinion, exactly. So I just want to make sure we kind of take our audience through the key points here. As a public service to anyone who wants to refute the Democrats' impeachment nonsense over the next few days, weeks, months, or however long this madness goes on, what we're going to do tonight with our guests here, we're going to review the various arguments that are knocking around on both sides and see which ones are bad and which ones are good. So let's start with the main one from the Democrats. Here's Shifty Schiff.
This report chronicles a scheme by the President of the United States to coerce an ally, Ukraine, that is at war with an adversary, Russia, into doing the President's political dirty work.
So this is the central charge, and this is the point I don't think people have recognized enough. The public hearings proved that this argument doesn't stack up. Kurt Volker, the Ukraine envoy, his testimony made clear that it was the officials around President Trump who cooked up the whole aid for investigations thing in order to improve U.S.-Ukraine relations. Look at what he said.
This is an effort we are doing, that this could be helpful in getting a reset of the thinking of the president, the negative view of Ukraine that he had. And if we did that, I thought that would also be helpful in unblocking whatever hold there was on security assistance, that if there's this negative presumption about Ukraine, getting this stuff on track would be helpful.
Tammy, it was their idea. The idea that President Trump had this sort of scheme to abuse his power and do this complicated thing is ridiculous.
Well, it is, and I think the American people see it as ridiculous, which is why the polls have not changed, and even in swing states, impeachment's now underwater, is because the American people also see the accusation constantly changing. It's very, very strange. So first, of course, it was Russia collusion. Then it was a cover-up. Then it was treason. Then they did the focus group, as you noted. Then it became bribery. But if you need to do focus groups on the best words to use, we know it's a fraud from the start. So this has been an unserious dynamic. Frankly, as Professor Turley noted during the hearing, that they themselves are abusing power by accusing the president of just defending himself of abusing his power and taking advantage of his position. So I think the American people, they underestimate the wisdom of the American people. We're generally quiet individuals, but I would point to the situation with Obamacare. Another thing that was moved quickly through in a partisan manner. People were lied to. It was very aggressive. Americans said, wait, we don't know, this is too fast. And the next year, in 2010, they lost 6 Senate seats and 63 House seats. That will be the answer from the American people. But as long as, and we're already hearing it going from Ukraine back to Russia, because I would guess of another focus group or a demand that they bring in Mueller, it is chaos.
Right.
And the American people see that.
That's such a great point. And to that point, Jason, I just wanted to have you listen to this, because it's another example exactly of what Tammy's saying. It's a whole new argument that I've just started to be deployed in the last week or so. This is Karen Bass last week.
The Mueller report was about the 2016 election. What happened with Ukraine is about the 2020 election. And we need to do everything we can to stop the president from intervening in the next presidential election.
So look, apart from the fact that it's total gibberish, like she's saying he can't intervene in an election where he's the candidate. Like, what's she talking about? But like, have you noticed this? Now they're going on about, oh, this is rigging the 2020 election, and that's why we've got to do this now. It's madness.
Well, that's why they just keep throwing everything at the wall, hoping something sticks. But let's remember, it was during the Obama-Biden administration that Russia came in and took over 9% of Ukraine. They're the ones that took Crimea, and it was President Obama who did not give them the lethal aid. Two main central facts still bode well for Donald Trump. A, he released the transcript, so you can go out and read it for yourself, and there was no this quid pro quo or some deal that was out. He released everything that was out there. I mean, Donald Trump has done, and the aid that they're talking about, that they're so concerned about, was released before the deadline. It doesn't get any more clear than that.
All right, so another one they've been throwing in there, Sarah, let's listen to this one, has come up a lot this week, with more, as they're losing ground on some of the other arguments. I think this is why this one's coming up. Obstruction. Let's have a look at this.
A president who will not cooperate in an impeachment inquiry is putting himself above the law. Now, putting yourself above the law as president is the core of an impeachable offense, because if the president could not be impeached for that, he would, in fact, not be responsible to anybody.
Okay, by the way, Bob, that guy did them so much damage. I think.
Did.
But anyway.
He did extraordinary damage. And it's saying, like, okay, now we're going to box him in because we know he didn't commit any crime. We're now going to suggest that the crime he did commit is the fact that he doesn't come here and testify that he didn't commit any crime, which is an impeachable offense. Look, this is all wordsmithing.
Yeah,
and
that's right. That's what it is. Exactly.
It's wordsmithing. And the American people just look at the channel. They watch these folks, Feldman, they watch Carlin testify, using their big words and throwing out all of their Harvard-educated and Stanford-educated words. And you know what they say? There is nothing here. This is a bunch of, like Joe Biden would like to call, malarkey, and they changed the channel. And that's why the numbers aren't going up. There was no crime committed. The president did exactly what he was supposed to do. He is not supposed to hand out U.S. dollars and U.S. aid without having any review of what's going on. And too bad that Joe Biden's son was taking money from a supposedly corrupt energy company. If he was involved in that, that's something else altogether. The president has a right to review. He released the money. He provided lethal aid, as you suggested, exactly what he was supposed to do at that time, because he made that decision.